Let's face it, shopping for insurance can be time-consuming. That's why when it comes to your auto, home, and life insurance needs, make things simple and trust the experts at Allstate. They will help you get the coverage that fits your needs while helping you bundle your life, home, and auto policies. Bundling saves you money, sure, but it also saves you time, so you can enjoy the things that matter most even more. Contact me, Tammy Haynes, your local agent, for a free personalized insurance quote. Allstate, are you in good hands?
I have in me the ability to make you a better you. So if you work hard, focus, stay on point, you can do anything. Trust me.
We made this track to tell everybody they can follow their dreams.
Majesty is a premium health and wellness tea line focused on bringing delicious yet healthy tea blends to the community. Filled with an abundance of vitamins and antioxidants, we work to blend teas with exotic spices and fruits to produce scrumptious and wholesome beverages. So check us out at mymajesties.com. That's MyMajesties.com. My Majesties, an Urban Passport member.
For my people that don't get to see me, tryna remind you who you are, just like in Romans 3. See, we bout to blow across the world just like the day is breezy. This motivation for the people, and this classic Bible teaching say, make this for my people that don't get to see me. Tryna remind you who you are, just like in Romans 3. See, we bout to blow across the world just like the day is breezy. This motivation for the people, and this classic Bible teaching. Motivation.
It was a monumental game for A&M and Tampa. It was a monumental game. Somebody had to lose, and thank God it was them this time.
We knew it was going to be a battle. Look at Jake Ave's record. 202 and 36, I think. Some off-the-wall figures.
And nobody would...
Yeah. Yeah. I love my HBCU, and boy, I love it, I love it, I love my HBCU, and man, I hope my team they won one, I hope my team they won one, yeah, man, I hope my team they won one, I hope my team they won one, yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse, but if they won, keep tab, I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavill, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson. And you gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play, boy. You gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play, yeah. We represent that swag, that MEAC, and let me say, what's up to Tennessee State? Tune into the HBCU Sports Lab with Dr. Bill, Mike and Charles, and I'm time.
Welcome. Episode 78 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU diaspora, i.e. all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small, from the NAIA to NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, the HBCU athletic aesthetic, and we'll get some new HBCU terminology today with sports consumption. Stay tuned to hear a little more about that. We do all this to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, along with my co-host Mike Washington and Charles Bishop, better known as Professor Washington and Professor Bishop, for those that do not know. We are filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to our KCOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, Ralph Cooper, in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University. Go Tigers. From Houston, Texas. And all sports and places in between. Today, episode of Inside HBCU Sports Lab, sponsored by THG Agency, is a company that provides sporting and educational consulting data analytics from all perspectives. But welcome, gentlemen. Professor Charles Bishop, Professor Washington, how are y'all doing today?
Doing well, Dr. Cavill. Another busy day in sports, another busy day in sports business. A lot of stuff to get to, a lot of stuff to talk about.
Oh man, the heat has cooled down, but the temperature's turned up elsewhere in the sports environment and in the political environment. Man, the temperature's hotter everywhere else. But thankfully in Houston, we got a heat break.
Man, I couldn't have brought it any better than that. I'm going to open up with the news today because it just fired. Mike alluded to this, and so I'm going to steal y'all thunder. I'm going to take a little bit of this here. All love goes to Howard University. They start out the week with no jail Easton, a P5 transfer. When they say P5, we're talking about Power 5. NCAA likes to call them the Autonomy 5, and we'll probably get into a little more news of that later when we take a deeper dive. But this is about HBCU sports, or at least HBCUs.
Right.
So we're going to talk about the transfer from Purdue that commits to Howard University. And then Mike talked about, all things politics and whatever. Well, Howard University has amongst them who previous Vice President Joe Biden, has selected as VP for those that have been asleep this late afternoon as that broke. And he has announced his running mate for Vice President will be none other than Kamala Harris. And why do we talk about that? HBCU, why? Well, she went to law school at Howard University. So as I say this right now, Howard is winning. And if Howard's winning, they are an HBCU. That means HBCUs are winning. And when we talk about the greater perspective of HBCU in sports, we talk about the sporting diaspora, the HBCU athletic aesthetics, the HBCU sports culture, and we talk about how it ties in oftentimes with bands, with the marching sport. But there's another tie-in that we talk about and we brag about all the time. When you talk about fraternities and sorority, and she happens to be a member of Devastating. A lot of the Pearl, as they like to talk about, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, that she's a member of that. So it's just fascinating to see that goes down in so many days. Proud of HBCU, proud of the analytic in terms of what they bring to the table. We're going to get some spotlight, so we need to go to work because the other side, for those don't necessarily have the same appreciation that we do for the culture. Not to say that there's some things that we might be able to challenge our Harris, but we'll do that with anybody any day. People need to pick it up, especially me from a very Afrocentric platform. I'm not scared to talk about it in any platform. Capitalism, socialism. I'll take it to task. The Power 5 Institute, NCAA, just a professor. That's what I do. I get to be open and honest, and I can bring it like none other. And I'm going to be surgically strategic in terms of when I break it down. I'm going to bring a little data with it. As you know, some of y'all caught me on the show yesterday. While we doing this, I'm actually giving a presentation to Prairie View A&M National Alumni Association as I get a chance to do a tape presentation for them. So, as I like to try to do, there's a other individual that was named the hardest working man in the radio business as a disc jockey. Maybe I'll be the hardest working man in terms of academic and streaming platform. Dr. Kabir, how about that? So before I turn it over there, I wanted to get some love, but I wanted to get that on table. I thought that was just something that I had to get out there and make that connection. I'm sure Mike alluded to it perfectly. I saw it was on the tip of Bishop's tongue. So I was like, let me get out of here and get in front of that. Lenny Jenkins, Ricky Key, Burton, Jay Mack is in here, Lonnie Shaw, Quentin Henry, Janice. I want to make sure I say that right.
Lavallee.
Thank you.
Lavallee.
Thank you for that fastball there and that handoff. Charles, I needed that a little bit. Jay Mack says, I'm ready. Anthony Johnson. Man, we got the Bulldogs in the house. Morgan State Bears in the house. MEAC's in the house. Christian Williams. Franklin Nelson, Texas Southern. Prairie View in the house. Yes. Bria Washington's in the house. Jessica Hayden. George Walker. Man, Jason Cable, Alcorn State, the SWAC is in the house. Donnie Page, Michelle Richardson, Howard University is in the house. Trudy Jackson, Daryl Terrell, Willie Alex Hines, all in the house. Stephen Robinson, Alcorn State, also sending out a lot of love. Different places as he's traveled his athletics. Chuck Hunt, Ramlin State in the house, which means if you got all these people in the house, we already talked. The Panhellenic is in the house in so many different ways. Phi Beta Sigma, we're gonna give some love off the top to the man that produces behind the scenes. That family rattler.
No doubt.
Again, as he brings it hot and heavy.
Don't you dare!
Don't give the love for the brothers. Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity is in the house. The three brothers right here. Omega Psi Phi. We got some good friends out there. Kappa Alpha Psi, getting it done. Iota Phi Theta out there. We don't want to leave them out. As sometimes people like to tease them, but they all part of the big family. And then we got the sororities. Right? We talked about it. Delta, Sigma, Theta, Alpha, Kappa, Alpha. Right? Zeta Phi Beta.
Yep.
Sigma, Gamma, Rho.
Lord, yes, Zeta Phi Beta. My mom and my sister.
Yes, sir. I'm gonna get them all out there today. We're gonna bring that love. We bring it. But the people in the house, with that, I'm gonna jump over. Since Mike was so ready to go, I'm sure he got some other news out there. So I'm gonna bring it to Mike. Mike, what do you have for us in terms of the HBCU news of the day?
Oh yeah, so yeah, back. Thanks, Doc, for that handoff right back. Yes, couldn't start the day off without alluding to the fact that Senator Kamala Harris is now the vice presidential nominee. Big ups. The other one is you kind of glossed over it, but the show's own Dr. Kenyatta J. Campbell was the keynote speaker at the Prairie View A&M national pinning ceremony just yesterday. So he kind of glossed over it. Normally he kind of alludes to the fact that he's going to speak here, but kudos to him.
Congratulations.
Selected, and it's definitely worthwhile. I always joke with him, but congratulations to him. I do have some news, though, if you'll allow me to. Many of you have seen on the social media the HBCU sneaker tour, as it's aptly named by CP3. And it's been given a name because he's basically been sporting HBCU paraphernalia in the HBCU bubble. So it's officially been dubbed the HBCU sneaker tour. He's been spreading love, not to the larger HBCUs, but also to the smaller. So this past week, he gave love to two institutions. Was it on Sunday? He gave love to Albany State. You got to say it right if you're from there. I've lived in that region. You got Albany. So he gave love, had their shoes, had Breonna Taylor's name on it, of course, to recognize her. And then most recently, they lost to the Oklahoma City Thunder on Monday. But nonetheless, it was an opportunity for him to recognize Savannah State. And of course, you saw all of the Savannah State alums recognizing that on Twitter. This has become more than just about him recognizing institutions. It has become kind of a grassroots movement. People are taking notice. Yeah. And I think it's good. I mean, he has often professed in public his love for HBCUs. But I think it's good that he is actually sporting the brands and showing love, not just to the larger HBCUs, but to the smaller HBCUs. So kudos to Chris, but kudos to the love that the HBCUs are getting in this basketball bubble.
No doubt about it. I knew Mike would find some awesome information to put out there. That was a big one. I'm going to put in the little chat where everybody is. I'm going to put in, you can go to slamonline.com, and I'll put it in there. There's an article that talks a little more in depth, as Mike just said, in terms of Chris Paul supporting HBCUs fighting for social justice. And it's a great, tremendous story. Shout out to his longtime stylist, Courtney Mays, who was in a lot of ways impetus in terms of kicking this off. People, as time flies, they may have forgot that this started back, as we talk about Houston, when he was back in Houston as a Rocket. His stylist was talking about as they wanted to support black designers and historically black colleges and universities his entire family attended an HBCU.
Absolutely.
And so he's always had that discourse and understanding and appreciation for HBCU, but he was looking for a way to magnify what he already knew, which I can greatly appreciate. He essentially says he was the only one in his family, for the most part, that didn't go to HBCU. As you know, he went to Wake Forest there and got it done. But you can go to slamon.com, and he talks about the fact when they first came back, Courtney made a visit to Texas Southern University. His father's alma mater, Courtney, was. And she went on to Campus Bookstore to purchase a souvenir and noticed a sweatshirt that looked perfect for Paul. And that was the day that he debuted coming into the arena with this legendary Texas Southern University sweatshirt on. In the world, from our platform, as some people like to use the vernacular, Black Twitter, Facebook and all that, lit up ablaze and was like, hey, I went there, what's up, what you doing? And now he talks about why he was doing it. People know that he's obviously filming a project to put more information on HBCUs in regards to the recruiting. He's also talking about how you can go to the site now, and every time he wears a shoe, he talks a little more about the institution, in regards to the programs and stuff like that. So it's not just about the culture in terms of the shoes, which is going to be big, as Mike talked about, because he started out with Howard. And then, he started out with A&T. He did that right, North Carolina, after the Texas Southern. But I'm talking about in terms of the shoes, which are Jordan brand shoes. And all these are Nike or Jordan schools. A&T is the only Jordan school out there. My understanding that Jackson State is looking for basketball, looking about seriously talking with Ashley Robinson about having Jordan brand for basketball in that framework. But after he did that, he put on some Howard University. Alabama A&M got some love in the picture, as you talked about. And then all of a sudden, snuck up there, Livingston College. So he's made the round win. MEAC. All right. Then he's going into SWAC, obviously. And then into the CIAA. And then next thing you know, SIAC comes up, as you said, and talking about Albany gets love in there. And then, obviously, Savannah State there as well. All the SIAC are Nike institutions, so that'll be interesting. Still got time for Jackson State. It'll be interesting to see if they're going to get some time and love. But he ends this article, and this was before Savannah State was premiered yesterday, as Mike talked about. There's more to come. So he's just gotten started. So this is fascinating. So I wanted to go a little more depth in that. And like I said, before I turn it over to Charles to give us some news, I will post that into our live chat session. So people, keep it coming. Forward this out and keep it going for us. All right, Charles, what do you got?
Yeah, and this comes to us from the SWAC office. Andrew Roberts, Assistant Commissioner for Media Relations. Alabama State's Arian Spann, she was named the SWAC Woman of the Year today. And, of course, that comes out today from the SWAC office. Alabama State University women's cross country and indoor track and field student athlete Arian Spann has been named the 2020 Southwestern Athletic Conference Woman of the Year. She was selected based on the recommendation of the SWAC Woman of the Year Selection Committee, which consists of 4 league senior women administrators. With her selection, Spann will now move on as the conference nominee for the 2020 NCAA Woman of the Year Award. So kudos to Arian Spann on being named the SWAC Woman of the Year today.
Great call, man. Big up to her in terms of what she got done. That's a nice feat to be ultimately SWAC Woman of the Year. What else you got, Charles? Coming right back to you.
This came out yesterday, and I was really excited about this. This came out, Grambling State to establish a center for the study of race and politics in sports. The Doug Williams Center for the Study of Race and Politics in Sports. Grambling University announced yesterday that the establishment of the Doug Williams Center for the Study of Race and Politics in Sports to engage public education and develop potential social and political solutions to issues concerning professional sports. The center will be supported by the NFL Campus Connection Program and collaborate with the Eddie G. Robinson Museum. So big news coming out yesterday in terms of Grambling State University Doug Williams Center for the Study of Race and Politics in Sports. So pretty excited about that.
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm going to drop that over there, too. We have Dr. Crystal McGregor on the line. We're going to bring her right in, but as we're bringing her in, I want Mike Washington to get a chance to do his second news of the day, and then we'll go into our interview, which I believe is going to be tremendous, but I'm going to drop that in there in terms of the race, politics, and sports, officially named the Doug Williams Center for the Story of Race, Politics, and Sports, in collaboration with the Etta G. Robinson Museum, as you talked about. You can go to hbcusports.com, and they have a great write-up on it that talks about what they plan to do a little more in depth. There's a video that I'll put in the chat that I think is nice that you want to check out. And then the story from HBCU Sports, I'll link that in there as well. I think it's a tremendous piece of the work that you want to see. So that is pretty masterful there in a lot of ways. As we get into it, one thing that I want to see, though, is hopefully they are preparing in terms of the executive director. So I want to see who that is. As we got Dr. Crystal McGregor on here, let's go to Mike, and then we'll bring Dr. Crystal McGregor in, and we'll start our interview. Go ahead, Mike. What the last part of the news of the day you want to share?
Yeah, one more piece of news just to tie off to CB's news on Doug Williams and Grambling. The National Quarterback Club announced Tuesday that Roman Gabriel, James Shaq Harris, Kurt Warner, and Doug Williams will be inducted to the National Quarterback Hall of Fame at the 2020 National Quarterback Black Quarterback Hall of Fame Awards Dinner. Hall of Fame induction ceremony is scheduled for, I believe, February 27th of 2021. So this will celebrate Tom Flores with the Legacy Recognition Award. Tom Flores is a Native American of background with some Spanish descent. So just another word for the minority, but a big hit for Doug Williams as well, as he's honored, so to speak, twice, almost within the span of weeks. So hats off to Grambling Nation. I got this from one of their social media sites. Hats off to the Grambling Football Organization in particular for putting out so many prominent football players, but leaders in our society. So,
that's incredible. As we do that, I want to welcome my friend. She had me fired up after she sent me her stuff, and I got a chance to read the dissertation in full. So you know I'm a glutton for punishments, and I forgive me, I am truly an academic. This is just what I do on the side. But with that, none other than Dr. Crystal McGregor. Welcome inside the HBCU Sports Lab, Dr. Crystal McGregor. The purpose of this segment is to discuss HBCU sports marketing. We tied that in a little last week, and I promise you we're going to give you more. Now we're going to truly get into the particulars in terms of research. What does it mean to be sports marketing? What does that really look like? Because we talk about it all the time. We all say we need sports marketing, but how do you get it done? How do you put in the work? What is really necessary to be a good sports marketer? And she is a proud alumni of Hampton University. Shout out to Hampton University, those mighty Pirates. We tease them because they slid all over there to the Big South, but they still love HBCU sports. We'll talk about that later. We're going to get into it. We teased a little bit up front because, you know, they got this running battle with Howard University, who's the real HU. But you did have your colleague, Derek Williams, on the show last week. Weber, I should say. He's at Hampton University. So y'all repping. Y'all getting it done. So with that, go ahead. Hit your mic in regards to your silent, and let's bring him in. Bring her in, Dr. Crystal McGregor. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you? I'm
doing well. Everybody may not recognize that accent, so let's just jump into it. Tell us about yourself. Where you from?
I'm originally from Jamaica, born and raised. I migrated to the States around, I want to say after high school. I won't state my age right now, but right after high school, I migrated to the States.
You right at home. You don't have to
That's
do
all right.
You don't have to do
that. You were at home.
Right. Migrated to the States, and I first started, I really wanted to just work. Graduated from high school. I just wanted a job. And so I started working at Sears, got promoted. I just wanted to get a paycheck, to be honest with you. But then I had a supervisor that she encouraged me to go back to college, and eventually I did, and I went to Bronx Community College in New York, and there I did track and field in Jamaica. And so when I got to Bronx Community College, I started doing track and field again, And after 2 years, I received a full athletic scholarship to Hampton University. I did track and field. I threw the discus, the shot put, the hammer throw, all those good stuff. And, I graduated from Hampton in 2011. And then in 2012, I went back to serve as the director of operations for the women's track and field program, in addition to being an assistant coach. And it was there I started working on my master's in sports administration. I didn't want to get a PhD, to be honest with you. I was just trying to get promoted, trying to get a degree, trying to get elevated in life, to be honest with you. But I had advisors who just constantly pushed me, right? Dr. Livingston, Dr. Hall, they would consistently tell me, like, Crystal, you're made out for a PhD program. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. Research is boring. Like, I'm being honest, right? Research is boring. There is nothing that I want to study. I don't want to write a 200-page paper. I don't want to do, like, who wants to do that, right? And that will always be my response. And and eventually Dr. Livingston convinced me, and that's when, I met Dr. Keisha Armstrong, who served as my advisor during the time at the University of Michigan. And so that's really, the journey of how I got into getting a PhD, working on my PhD in sport management. Never thought that would be something to happen to me, to be honest with you. And so now that I recently graduated in May, and now I'm just excited to go forth and continue to do great work.
Wow. I appreciate that, giving us that background. And so we're going to jump right into it. A lot of people are interested, saying hello, chiming in, giving some love. Hampton Pirates out there, talking about the HBCU world as you talk about your connection. And Charles knows this. Mike does too, as I talk about this. I talk about spreading the framework of the sporting HBCU diaspora and its collective vision. Many people are not aware that we actually have an HBCU in the Caribbean in terms of the University of the Virgin Islands, which is the only HBCU outside of the continental U.S. In my travel, I went to the University of Bahamas, sat on that campus, and they have Greek life. And you sit in the middle of that campus, and if you didn't know, when you close your eyes and somebody opened up and say, "Where are you?" You'd be like, "I don't know, but this is the HBCU campus." Not quite in the literal terminology, but it looks like that. Then, you have the University of West Indies, and you talk about Jamaica in terms of who they service, right? There's a University of West Indies in the Trinidad, Barbados. I got to visit those institutions over the years doing research papers in terms of that. So it gave me a chance to spread this context of what does the sporting HBCU diaspora look like. So that is significant to me. We have an HBCU, if you would, in terms of in Brazil that I talk about in my literature. That was specifically made up for Afro-Brazilians in Brazil because of the lack of education, much like what we've seen in the United States. Right. You go to Africa, South Africa to be specific. You have a University of the Cape that's over there that was specifically designed for Africans, South Africans that were not allowed to be educated originally in the context of once it was invaded, as I would like to say, when you put that contextuality on there, because obviously prior to that, you had Africans all over the continent of Africa that were educated in Timbuktu and all those universities of the day. So I don't even talking about Ivy League like. I like to say, if anything, Timbuktu like in regards to that, if I'm going to talk about what we're connecting HBCUs to. But that's enough about that. In your dissertation, the focus was on food, music, and clothing, and visual goods and elements of the culture. I just talked about the greater level of culture that are salient to the black community. And notice you said black community, bigger than that, not just African American community, but the black community in terms of the context of the world, because you are a part of the world, right? And also relevant to sports consumption experience, more importantly. What makes culture meaningful to HBCU sports consumption experience? And the second part of that, if you allow me, is why and how does it matter to HBCU sports consumption?
Right, yeah. So, that's really, so the first thing I wanted to understand, to be honest with you, like, I think when I attended Hampton, I couldn't understand why, they didn't have a lot of people in the stadium, right? I'm originally from Jamaica. Like, coming from Jamaica, sports is a big part of her culture. You attend a track and field, you attend a soccer game, cricket, it's sold out. right? And so when I first got to the US, like that was a shocker to me. And I was like, there's something more. And for the longest, I thought it was related to, whether the performance of the team, whether they're losing, they're winning, or whatever it may be. But as I started doing my dissertation, I realized that it was deeper than that. It was embedded in the culture and what culture is that culture is broad, right? Culture is multifaceted. And so if you think of culture, it's not just traditions and the way in which knowledge is produced, but it stems from food, music, the clothing, all these different things. And so I wanted to take a different spin, within ortho, within academia. There's not a lot of scholars, and Dr. Cavill could tell you this, there's not a lot of scholars that do research that's centered around understanding the HBCU sport consumption experience. And so the research that has been done, which has been done by Dr. Keisha Armstrong, she talked about culture, but she never really went into saying what does culture mean for Black people. And so that's what I wanted to do. And so when I started, I realized that it was these different elements, right? So the food, it was the music, it was the clothing. If you go to any HBCU game, you would notice that the type of food that's being sold, it's different, right? You're seeing fried chicken and pork chops and collard greens, all these things that are related to Black culture, right? And that's meaningful to Black people. It does something for them. And so when you think about the band and the way in which the band performed, the way in which they dance, at Michigan, I've attended football game, it's the complete opposite. They're playing and I'm like, what are y'all doing, right? Because the way in which, we perform culture and we perform race is completely different within the HBCU setting. And so for my study, those elements of culture were the four areas that I wanted to examine. I wanted to examine the impact that food has on consumption experience, the way in which they dress, right? Some HBCUs, you will find people dressed in Afrocentric clothing, while for some, they'll be dressed in the school, their school apparel, whatever it may be, but it represents something about their culture, right? I wanted to look into talking about the different vendors that you will see, right? You will see vendors selling different Afrocentric art and clothing, and a lot of Black vendors selling their stuff, their products. And so for me, I wanted to examine that and to find out, why does this matter to Black people, right? And throughout my dissertation, throughout my journey, I did an ethnography. So I went to an HBCU, I stayed there for a couple of days, and I just interact with the consumers, right? Numbers are cool and everything, but I'm big on hearing the voices. I want to know the story. I want to understand the narrative, because then as a scholar, I'll be able to use that and to make a difference, right? To offer implications, to offer suggestions and these things. And so, just going in the research, it revealed to us that it's really HBCU sport consumption experience. It's not that within an HBCU event, it's more about the cultural disposition than the sport disposition. Meaning, the consumers will attend. They will attend these games. They will cheer for the teams, but at the end of the day, it's more along the line that we're going there for this racial affirmation. One consumer, he told me, he said, the reason why I come here is because I feel like I'm human when I'm here. I don't feel like somebody's going to kill me. I don't have to look over my shoulders. When I'm in this space, I feel protected. And so when you think about these different reasons, like really HBCU events really provide that space for a safe haven for Black people. And I say Black people because it's the entire Black community. It's not just whether or not you attended an HBCU or not, because I spoke to individuals that did not attend an HBCU, but they were there. They were at the game, having a good time, supporting these HBCUs, right? And it's because it does something for them. It gives them motivation, it encourages them, and it really helps them to celebrate their culture in different ways and to be among other Black people. So yeah, I hope that kind of answered your question.
Certainly, I think it gives us food for thought, and as I see Charles' intent in regards to that, so I'm gonna let him get to follow up a question because he has things churning in his mind. He's actually a doctoral student now at Texas Southern University, so he's churning on where he wants to go, particularly with his dissertation work as he's just starting out. and then Mike is right behind him in regards to planning to get in there too. So it's a fascinating lot of ways where this takes off. Just our pure sports fandom in terms of HBCUs, if you allow me to use that vernacular in terms of that, but also where we chime in from the HBCUs. So we won't get too deep into the academic part of it, but I think it's important to lay the groundwork, and now we can get into some further dialogue in terms of what that looks like for everybody entering with that. So Charles, if you would go ahead and follow up with your question, if you would.
Well, you know, of course, looking at the dissertation, I went honed in right to the research question. So one of the things that I was taking a look at was one of the questions you had was what makes the culture meaningful to the HBCU sports consumption experience. And when you were talking about the person talking about being in this safe space, if you will, how do you think that translates over to potential athletes coming into this HBCU experience, being in this safe space? Because right now we're kind of in that groundswell of young athletes looking at HBCUs again.
May have frozen up a little bit about that, so we'll see if we can get Crystal to come back in and tune in. But as we're doing that, let's look at some of those news of the day, and then we'll pick back up in terms of the interview. But before I do that, I want to keep on some of this framework and share, depending on when she's able to get in. I want to kind of make sure we get into that. And so she talked about some other professors like ourselves that do that type of research. You have Dr. Jeremy Cheeks. We've had him on the show before, where he talks about the anti-deficit model, looking at HBCU from an anti-deficit model. And we chimed in a little bit about that last week, Mike, when we talked about what does that look like of not being in a anti-deficit model. And we have Dr. Crystal McGregor back. And so I'll close out on this thought, and then I'll let you reframe that question to make sure you can get it back in, Charles, so we can get it answered. But we also have like Dr. Joseph Cooper has clicked up on, as you said, what Dr. Pucci Armstrong has done with a lot of HBCU work, and some other professors that we work with. But Dr. Joseph Cooper talks about this collective uplift framework in terms of their work. Another fellow perspective I have is Dr. Keno Miller, and he looks at this resistance to ethnic socialization, athletic socialization, and black athletes. And then we're talking about drilling down, what does that even mean more in terms about HBCU resistance, if you would, from that framework, HBCU athletic socialization. So we'll get a chance to dig a little deeper in that. But before we go that, let me get back and let you, Charles, to follow up on your question to make sure Dr. McGregor can get that all in so she can chime in on it.
Yeah, Dr. McGregor, what I was asking was, I was taking a look at the research questions within the dissertation, and one of the questions that you had was what makes the culture meaningful to the HBCU sports consumption experience. And I'm trying to, I guess, find out within your research, is there a way to quantify that sports consumption experience in terms of what does it mean for potential recruits looking at, you mentioned this safe space, the safe haven, if you will, at HBCUs. Is there a way to sort of to quantify what that means for recruits looking at HBCUs?
Right. Based if we know these are
so, Dr. McGregor, we're going to see if we can send you yeah, you're fading out. We're going to see if we can probably get you a phone number just to call in back into, because your signal is going out, and I don't want to lose the concept of the conversation here in the narrative with that connection. So let me get Roy to work on getting you a text, and I'm going to follow up and chime in and ask Mike, and I'm going to text you the number to call in, Crystal, and you can call right back in. All right? And so with that, Charles, if you followed up, I wanted to get your thoughts on that a little bit in terms of what are your thoughts when you start talking about the questions that you have in terms of the Afrocentric ambiance. If you would, Charles, get some thoughts on that, and then we'll get Crystal back in to call in and give her perspective of why she wrote it like that. Okay?
Yeah, well, I guess I always take a look at it from the standpoint of my experience growing up with Jackson State athletics. You take a look at the city of Jackson itself. It's a very Afrocentric city, and they sort of rally around Jackson State. And when you kind of take a look at other HBCUs that are similar in size and to what I grew up with, I'm always curious as to the experience itself, the consumption part of it itself. What does that mean? Like we're here in Houston, how does Texas Southern sort of grab the U of H fan, the University of Texas fan, the Texas A&M fan to come back to Texas Southern? So I'm always kind of taking a look at, what it looked like in terms of my growing up during the 80s with Jackson State, 28-game SWAC winning streak and things of that nature, where, putting 35, 40,000 in the stands was nothing. That was just, it was part of my experience growing up. So I'm always looking to see how do we recapture that sort of experience, because it wasn't just the game itself, it was the whole consumption element that she talks about in the paper.
Very well stated, son.
Great point, because I think when you look at that, a lot of times one of the things that is amazing me is the research. When you do those studies, she looked at a particular institution and her experience, which you're talking about, as we said, HBCU Southeast, HBCU in the East Coast area. How does that translate in terms of the SWAC and particular institutions? So it could be interesting when you look at that in that manner. So what are your thoughts on that, Mike, in terms of the perception that you see going in?
Well, I like the way she coined it, and I like CB's follow-up. You learn a lot about a culture through their activities, through the food, through the music, and if you go to these events, and she gave it from her perspective. Well, let's say you're a young male or female growing up in the southeast part of the United States, and maybe you attend a Savannah State game. Maybe you attend an Albany State, a Fort Valley State. Maybe you're further west and you attend a Southern or Grambling game. Each of those has a unique piece of our culture embedded in the activity. You go to an Albany State, or you're likely to see tailgating. You're likely to see things like low country boils. I always joke about that, but a low country boil is a dish that was created on Beaufort Island and basically manifested its way along the barrier islands of Carolinas by islands that were predominantly occupied by Africans. And so they took that low country boil and they made it, ingrained it in part of the culture. That has become part. You go to a tailgating event and you're likely to see that low country boil or that fried fish. You go to a Southern game, maybe you see a little gumbo. You go to a game of tech, but you're going to see the bands. That's going to be consistent in all HBCU games. You're going to see the rumble of the band, and that has created a unique signature that identifies with our culture. And I think that goes to the ambiance that she's talking to. It is uniquely identifiable for different regions, different states, but there's an overarching signature that ties to the HBCU experience. And if I hear her talk, if I hear her explain, I haven't read her complete paper.
She's back on, so I think the way that you tied it in is perfectly in regards the uniqueness, but at the time the greater diaspora, if you would, of HBCUs, as I like to talk about it. And I think that's the beauty and the uniqueness. And for individuals that do not study that, I think that's sometimes when they can make a mistake, when they're not careful in regards to understanding how to look at the whole, but also how to look at the individual components of it, which makes the whole better. But with that, we have Dr. Crystal McGregor, who better to really talk about this in herself. So I'm going to start back off and follow up and then hand it over to Mike to follow up with the question and then go to Charles a little bit. As we were talking about a little bit of that Afrocentric ambiance, I want to go a little further into that. Your dissertation also states research has shown that HBCU sporting events track a more niche market of black consumers and offers them something that no other type of sport event is able to offer, a culturally empowering experience which I think is fascinating when you talk about that. I kind of snuck that out a little bit with Dr. Cooper and some frameworks that and I have kind of opined on. This is accomplished, as you said, through the presence of this Afrocentric ambience. We've been teasing out a little back and forth, but Dr. McGregor, what are your thoughts and how do you explain Afrocentric ambience? I believe we have her on, so we'll see if we can make sure we hear the voice on our side there. As live will do that to you. You got to be ready to roll.
Absolutely.
As we go.
Right.
And so when I follow up on that, the other parts that I wanted to talk about when you look at this Afrocentric ambiance, if you would, in this sports consumption, just the experience in regards to how does that become unique and implemented, and how do you stretch it out? How do you go to an athletic department, if you would, Charles? Your thoughts on this, and how do you get them to understand that Afrocentric ambiance of HBCU, or in regards to really understanding that they can't just take what they see in marketing books, as you studied in sports marketing and general sports concept, and think you just lay it over HBCU sports and think that you're going to get people to be connected. What are your thoughts in terms of really understanding the art of marketing to HBCU sports fans in terms of sports consumption?
Well, to me, it's completely about understanding your fan base. One of the things, Dr. Ville, that has always fascinated me, and is you all talking about the growth of your homecoming experience in terms of the sort of the background in terms of the Prairie View homecoming experience now, and how it's grown during that time since you guys have been out of school. And I'm always fascinated by the fact of the consumption element part of it, where it sort of grew organically. So I'm always kind of grappling with, what is it that we, specifically look at with our various fan bases. For me, I don't know anything other than, the tailgate Saturday morning going into, the football game itself. It was a cultural piece of my growing up in Jackson, Mississippi. I didn't know that there was something else to do on a Saturday morning other than be at the stadium and into Jackson State football. So I always say administrators have to really know that fan base and really understand what is it that makes them click, the marketing element that really makes them click. So I'm always grappling with it. It's so unique from stadium to stadium. And like we said in class, Dr. DeVille, you can't just open up a marketing book and go down the list and check off, this is what we do, this is what we do, and this is what we do, because it's unique from Grambling to Southern to Grambling to Morehouse to Howard, wherever. So it is something that you have to have a good thumbprint on in terms of understanding what your fan base responds to.
Yeah,
with that, what are your thoughts on that, Mike?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. If you look at ambiance, you're talking about an atmosphere, and with that is commensurate of the mood, the setting. And if you tie that into the word Afrocentric, that uniquely qualifies it for an atmosphere, a mood, or setting that encompasses a period of time. And for some, it's been a day. For some, it's been 3 or 4 days, where that mood personifies and exemplifies, and you have lots of events that basically become signaturized as part of that mood and that environment. So if you look at any Afrocentric ambiance, there's going to be a macro look at this and a micro look at this. And if you look at it on the micro level, there's a way to look at it, by university, by region, where something is unique to that region. And if you look at it on a macro region, there's something that is common to all of the, I guess, to use Doc's word and use your word, CB, the diaspora of HBCUs. You're always going to have that band. You're always going to have, or the battle of the bands. You're always going to have that parade or that homecoming event But there's something that's also unique about each of those events to me that also exacerbates the importance of the ambiance, or just elevates to me. Maybe that's the proper word, that ambiance that you have in there. And to me, that's more, I guess, more dynamic, more important than what you see outside of the HBCU realm. You don't see that, to me, in other realms. You see something at Texas A&M, you see something at University of Texas, you may see that but to me, if you look at the combination of ethnic involvement, you look at the combination of unique foods, unique music, you look at the combination of that environment, when marketing these events, it is not an ABC, here's how you market this event. We're going to put it up on the internet. We're going to say it's going to happen here. Because of its uniqueness, there's a certain approach to marketing such an event. And I think that basically separates us aside from other institutions of higher learning when you talk to these kinds of events.
I think we have Dr. Crystal McGregor on. Let's see if we can get her voice on and continue with this interview. We apologize for all the listeners out there, and you as well, Dr. McGregor. Are you on?
Yes, I'm on. Can you hear me?
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. Look at that.
Yes,
man.
I'm
Thank
here.
you, Roy. Roy put all that extra work in the background. I know he come through for us. So sorry again for all those listeners out there, as well as KSOH. I know you're following us. As we got a little time here, let's dig a little deeper into here so we can get people back in. I know there were some questions as we were talking about it, but I wanted you to get your thoughts on Afrocentric ambiance. We kind of went back and forth with that. Really wanted to get the expert that came out with that terminology. What were you meaning in terms of the Afrocentric ambiance, if you will?
Yeah, so for me, when I use that terms, I'm talking about the way in which that the event is packaged, right? I'm talking about, again, the different elements of food, the blackness that's in that food. Like, so I don't know who spoke earlier, but he talked about how there's a certain type of food that's done at Grambling compared to other HBCUs, and it's that based on each location, it's unique, like he stated, it's unique to that particular HBCU. And so even in my dissertation, I talked about how, yes, the Afrocentric ambiance is presented at every HBCU, but it's going to look different, right? The food is going to be different. If you go to DC, the music in DC is going to be different than it is in Florida. To some extent, it's going to be different because, again, based on the region. And so when I talk about Afrocentric, I'm talking about the way in which the event is packaged through blackness and elements of blackness and what that blackness means to black consumers.
Oh, perfect. I really like that. Because that just reminds me, I could imagine going to the University of Bahamas, the University of Virgin Islands, or the University of West Indies for that matter, and as they construct a homecoming, what type of food would be at the tailgate there? Boy, I will be
Peas
at
and
my
rice.
next one.
Peas and rice. Peas and rice.
I need a little bit about that. I need a little bit about that right now. I need that in my life, Roy. Talk about yes. Mike Washington, go ahead and follow up with a question, please.
Yes, I've seen a couple of things on your LinkedIn site, and I've read a couple of things. And so, in one of your LinkedIn sites, you stated that you believe that the time is now for HBCU athletic directors to invest in marketing and be willing to adapt to changes in society and do things different because this is 2020 and not 1837. To a certain extent, yes. I really agree with you. I think in certain institutions, certain examples, I think we need to basically elevate the way we market, and we get marketing and promoting different, confused at a lot of HBCUs. So my question to you is why do you think HBCU departments, athletics are not adapting their marketing strategy of their programs to 2020? What's the gaps? Where do we fall short in this effort?
I've done numerous studies at different HBCUs, and the common theme that I've always heard is we don't have the funding, we don't have the money, we don't have the resources, so we're just going to work with what we have. And that's always the narrative, right? And so for me personally, I think there's more that can be done. I understand that we HBCUs do lack resources, but I think there are different ways we can become creative with marketing, right? I think there's different ways that we could do different collaborations on campus. When you, for instance, when you think about an HBCU with a journalism program or a major, whatever it may be, you could have students to do different videos to help you to promote stuff. I always think, or I always say that social media is free. You know, social media is a free platform that you could utilize to your advantage, right? And so for the longest, like I said, every time I've conducted a research, that's always the response. We don't have the money. And I think because that's the mindset, nobody's really taken into consideration that, hey, we need to find a way to market our product. HBCUs have a unique brand. We have a unique product that Black consumers want. They're looking for it. But if we don't promote that, then they'll never know about it. You know, when I first got to Michigan and I started in those classrooms, half of those students I've never heard about an HBCU, right? And so even if you think about, like, you do have Black consumers now that they have no idea what the HBCU sport consumption experience is like. They have no idea. And so what I believe, you know, based on what you said, I think we have to, as marketers, as HBCU marketers and researchers, we have to find a way, our marketers have to find a way to market the product so Black consumers will be attracted to it, that Black consumers will want to come out and want to support these institutions. We can't continue to use the same narrative saying that, oh, we don't have the resources, we don't have the finances. I believe that there's so much more that can be done, but we just have to find a creative way to do that.
Thank you for that, and I wholeheartedly agree. Let me let Charles chime back in here too for the follow-up question.
Well, let me ask, do you have to be kind of plugged into the HBCU culture to understand what's being marketed? And I say that from this standpoint, are we leveraging our social media? There is probably not a time I turn on my phone or my iPad where I don't scroll across something from an HBCU school. And I don't know, is it because maybe I'm plugged in, or is the average African American kind of even plugged into the HBCU experience?
Right. That's a good question. For me, I follow a few. And here and there, you will see one thing. But again, if you're not, like you said, if you're not plugged in to understanding or knowing more about the HBCU sport experience, like, you will never see those things. You will never know what's happening, right? If I did a survey, I remember when I was doing my dissertation, I went out and I looked at several HBCU social media sites, and they were outdated back to 2018, 2019, right? That if I'm a consumer, and I'm going to be disconnected. So they also have to be consistent with producing producing what we need to see. They have to be consistent with showing us more about the institution, about the sports, about the team, about the players, about the culture. We have to find ways to continue to show these things and to highlight the benefits of HBCUs, not just the sports, what the sports does, but just HBCUs in general.
I know in a lot of ways you do consulting on this now. You know, as the expert, one of the things you do coming out of faculty members do more research. Obviously, you're adjunct faculty person there back in Michigan at Jackson College, I believe it is. But in a framework, as you could do consulting, how would you be able to leverage with a HBCU athletic department that was interested in doing this kind of work? How would you begin that process with them, one, being able to contact you, but then following up and saying, all right, this is how we go about creating a framework to get this done?
Right. For me personally, I would definitely, I would definitely want to sit down and have a conversation with the athletic director or the marketing director to first even understand, do you know who your target audience is? Like, who are you marketing to? Is it the older generation, or you're marketing to the younger generation, right? Trying to understand these things. And then the next thing for me, because I'm a researcher, I would find ways to get the consumers involved, because at the end of the day, you're trying to create an experience that they're going to enjoy. You're trying to find a way to ensure that when they come to the game, when they buy a ticket, when they attend a football game, that they're enjoying themselves. And what better way than to ask them, what is it that you need? That's what marketing does, right? As a researcher and a marketer, you have to ask these questions to get these answers. And not that we'll be able to satisfy everybody's needs, but at least we have a blueprint to know what are the needs, what are the wants, and then we will see as a group, as a team, how we could create something that would at least give them something that they're looking for. So for me, I'll definitely have to go back to first understanding what do the consumers want. Because every consumers are different, right? The research site that I did for my research, for my dissertation, they want something different than the consumers at Hampton University would want or Grambling State would want. So again, every HBCU is going to look different. But we have to first understand the consumers, understand what are their needs, what are their wants, and then we'll have to find ways to be able to meet those needs.
We have Rob Calloway, who does the sports report. During the COVID-19, he ramped up things and did the Tuesday and Thursday and teased a lot of people. And now, because he's back to doing his full-time responsibility as a teacher, educating many of the students at the K-12 level specifically, that he's moved back to just a Saturday format, but he will still join us on Saturday. As we get to close up, because we're at the top of the hour and we'll be coming off of our KSOH 1230 feed, but I wanted to give a chance for Rob Calloway, to ask the question of you in regards to your research in HBCU sports consumption from that perspective, as we talked about Afrocentric ambiance. So I wanted to give him a chance to ask you a question. And then as you ask that question, you can close out in regards to how people can get in contact with you and how can they get more information, because I'm sure people want to read upon this even more as you continue to give this fascinating research. So if you would, Rob, go ahead and ask your question.
I'm just curious as to what the research found in regards to the ambiance.
Right. So in regards to the ambiance, the consumers, they talk about how it provides them with that a space where they could celebrate their culture, they could celebrate their pride. They talked about how it's almost like it provides them, it buffers, right? It buffers one discrimination. It buffers the fact that where you have some consumers, I think this was one unique thing that I found out, was you have some consumers who enjoy they strongly identify with their ethnicity. They strongly identify with their culture, right? And so what happens is whenever the team loses, if you're playing a football game, and the team loses, because they have that strong identification with the culture, the loss of the football team doesn't affect them. They're still happy, they still get to celebrate. But then you have fans who are more attached to the sport disposition, meaning they're more attached to the game. They want to see their team win it. And so when they don't win, what happens is even though they have some identification with their culture, that's not strong enough for them to feel satisfied. So they leave that game not being satisfied at all because they're more attached to the sport disposition. They're more attached to the outcome of the game versus to their culture. And so that was, one unique thing that came about when you think about the Afrocentric atmosphere. You talk about the band. That's what they talk about. They love coming to hear the band. They love coming to be able to walk down the street and purchase different types of food, whether it's catfish, fried fish, shrimp, anything that they're able to purchase stuff that are relative to their culture. They're willing to support black vendors and black vendors that sell Afrocentric products so they can support their community. They talked about how they use this experience to educate the younger generation about HBCUs and about the culture of African Americans in this particular experience. And so the ambiance that's offered in this space, it is used in numerous ways, whether it's one to satisfy the consumers or it is used to educate others about what HBCUs represent and what they stand for.
Thank you for that. We're at the top of the hour. We're going to close out. If you can hang in there, Dr. Crystal McGregor, we'll give you a chance to close out and let everybody tell how they can connect with you. And then we'll do our last 15-minute segment bonus part with Rob Calloway. So hold on just for a few. This is Dr. Cavill inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop, as we got Rob Calloway guesting with us coming in to close out the show as he gives us his take on what's going to come up this Saturday on his show. With that, again, you're listening to Dr. Crystal McGregor, recent PhD graduate of University of Michigan, as she spent her undergrad and masterwork at Hampton University, talking about the HBCU sports consumption, specifically looking at some components of Afrocentric ambiance, cultural attributes associated with HBCU sports consumption experience. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop.
What up, world? It's your boy, Rob Calloway, host of the HBCU Report. And right now, you're inside the HBCU Sports Lab with my guy, all hail the dean of HBCU Sports. You know I named him that. Dr. Kenyatta Kabil, my guy. What's happening, man?
No doubt about it. I appreciate
Rob,
it.
we ain't your guy.
What happened? What happened to the rest of it?
Hey man, he just asked me one day. He asked me at the swag meet. He said, "Hey man, can you make me a drop?" And I was like, "Yeah, doc, for you, yeah." He ain't say nothing. He ain't say nothing about Mike and Charles. He ain't say nothing about y'all, man.
Rob, you really do not have to worry about these guys, Professor Bishop and Professor Washington. Their time will come. We'll give them a little love before we get out of this.
I thought we had one with Mike and Charles. But
Y'all
no.
We do. We just chose not to play it right now. Hold on.
Oh, okay. I see how it is.
Dr. Crystal McGregor, back to you. As you see, the boys are acting up. We got a guest. They're not supposed to do that when we got a guest on the line. But with that, if you would, close out on your thoughts in terms of why this research is important and how can people get more information about reading some of the articles you've written specifically about this research, or if they want to contact you, particularly from some consulting perspective, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so one, I think this research is important because for one, I feel as if for the longest, Black consumers, their voices aren't heard. Their stories aren't heard. We don't know what they want. We don't know how we can satisfy them. And so for me, I think like the reason why I'm committed to doing this type of work is because I want to see HBCUs thrive. I want to be able to assist them with implementing marketing strategies that will help them to motivate and encourage consumers to want to come to the games, to want to buy season tickets, to want to give back, to want to promote HBCUs and for others to know about HBCUs because we have so much to offer. And I say we because I'm a product of an HBCU. I went to the Hampton University, right? And we have so much to offer. And so that's the reason why my research is important. As it pertains to contacting me, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn at Crystal McGregor, PhD, or Instagram, Dr._Crystal, MC, and that Crystal is Kristal, and Facebook, Crystal McGregor as well.
Yeah, I'm going to do this is how I was taught with this. This is Ralph Cooper, like he'd say, slow down. You act like everybody's ready to get all that right now. Say it one more time. You got to rush. Say it one more time. Give it to us again.
You want me to repeat it again?
Yes, please.
Okay, so my Instagram is Dr.Dr_Crystal, KRISTALMC. My LinkedIn is Crystal McGregor, PhD, and Facebook is just Crystal McGregor.
Thank you. It's great having you on, and we'll reach back out to you because I know you'll do some additional work, and we'll get a chance to get some updates, and hopefully we'll get a chance, to be honest with you, to work on some projects ourselves, and so we'll bring that back and talk to people over this fall as we continue to push the ledger, as you talked about. We have a consortium now of people that understand the work behind getting HBCU in general, specifically their athletic program and their sports teams to the next level. So I want to say thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No problem. I enjoyed it.
Oh, no problem. This is Dr. DeVille inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, and we have Rob Calloway of the HBCU Report jumping on here to give us some information. Really wanted to get into a little bit about this in what direction. Let's see where Rob wants to go, but I always like to bring something to him, to his attention, to see where he wants to take it. One of the things that was interesting to me is, one of the things that I think is brilliant about your show that is so different is you had that musical content in there. And I'm hearing about this new quote-unquote musical anthem where 2 Chainz drops HBCU band anthem, The Moneymaker.
Right.
Now, I'm listening to this, and I know that I've become more seasoned. I'll put it that way. I guess the grade will probably tell you that. I'm sitting there with my wife across the side and started playing this, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to play this or talk about this on the show. So I said, I'm just going to let Rob do it. What are your thoughts about this quote-unquote new drop, this HBCU band anthem, Moneymaker? And the reason I guess people are calling the HBCU band anthem is they obviously have the band in the background. So what are your thoughts in terms of the song? You can talk about the music part or the content.
Well, it's funny that you even bring this up because I just heard the song for the first time today, this morning. Like I had been hearing everybody talk about 2 Chainz had played this new song on the Versus battle against Rick Ross last week. But dude, I can't lie. I got so bored with the Versus battle, I fell asleep. And when I woke up, it was over with. So, hey, them dudes just too cool for school, man. You know, you got to have some personality like Snoop DMX. You got to have some personality in order to be able to keep my attention. But I heard the song today. Now I'm gonna point out a couple things. That, all right. So first of all, the band is playing in the background. That's Southern University. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's why he showed them love. That's why he said, you know, Southern University first. Then he said Bama State. All right. Then he said FAMU. I give 2 Chainz props because he didn't mention that other school he went to down the road, Tuskegee. So shouts out to that because Tuskegee band could never sound like that. So we know that was not Tuskegee. So it didn't even make no sense to shout them out. But you know, this is what 2 Chainz does, man. 2 Chainz is the club, the nightclub, strip club. Like that's his lane. You know, like, I mean, you talk about the dude that said, you know, that came out with It's Your Birthday. Like, come on, man. Like, every song that he has, for the most part, is for the strippers anyway. So,
somebody just chimed in. I didn't realize he's a psychology major, so that's deep in itself.
Yeah. It's like, man.
So he's the strip club. He makes the anthems for the club, for the night people, right? The people of the night, as they call them. He make the anthems for them. So the content, and then he got Lil Wayne on the song too. Like, man, you know, look, it is what it is. See, and like I said, I've been knowing Taheed for a long time because we actually went to Bama State together. So like they know some. I actually like the song. I mean, I can't lie. I mean, I like it better than that WAP, that Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion. I mean, like
I know a lot of them ain't gonna like that, but Texas Southern University.
I was about to say, Texas Southern.
Texas Southern.
All right. So
she actually started at Prairie View and trained at Texas Southern.
Well, one thing's for sure, we know it's plenty of WAP in the SWAC. Hey, we all SWAC.
I'm going to change this conversation.
Hold on. They got WAP down in FAMU too. Hey, don't they run?
Give Bethune-Cookman some love at it too.
They right by the beach. So they definitely got WAP.
Yeah. See, Doc,
this is good.
Doc, you would have to start it with that question, wouldn't you?
Oh man, yeah, this is funny. Chuck Hunt say this is the reason why he enjoyed G-Ho at A&T in 2019 with the tailgating other gatherings. I saw the white college environment at FCSC 5 and P5, but HBCUs have it. And I think you had Lonnie over here talking about. He said at North Carolina A&T they feed the team, so when they not so mad after they send them home with a loss. I was like, boy,
they getting outrageous with that. I saw that comment.
I said, so y'all keep bringing it on there. We checking you out as y'all checking the show. That's what we do. We bring that flavor. Rob, so what are your plans for Saturday? I know it might be hard to plan now. Things change so much. We just saw the bomb drop for some people, P5, and I told people we'd get into it, and we touched on it a little bit earlier about the Big Ten dropping that hammer, the Pac-12 dropping the hammer after some players tried to get involved. The president tried to get involved. I said, man, these are presidents. These are researchers at their core. They're going to listen to the medical researchers, they colleagues, more than they're going to listen to some politicians. I don't care how much pressure is on them. Most of them are academics at the beginning. And so they're going to fall on what they naturally know. They're going to take all that in, and that's going to scare them themselves, especially when they start talking to their legal or what we call general counsel about what just plausibly may happen. They be like, man, I'm not going to jail for anybody. They like, shut it out.
Yep.
And what was interesting to me, the I mean, the Big Ten said, hey, we'll revisit this. We're shutting it down now. But the Pac-12 came in and said, like, we shutting down everything to January 1st, basketball, football, all sports in between, fall, don't worry about it. Pack it up, put a little lock on it, close it up. We'll see you January 1st to see what's up.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on all that as we connect that in a larger perspective of what the HBCU did, mainly from all our collective conferences, including Ivy League, as they were one of the upfront teams too, over that period of time? How do you see that stretching across the paradox in a lot of ways? What are your thoughts on that, Rob? And then I'll go to Mike to follow up.
Well, we knew this was going to happen. Like, we can't fool ourselves. Everybody, and I don't know if you've been involved with them conversations. I know you were doing the HBCU stuff. I don't know if you've been involved with the Pac and the Big Ten, but I'm just saying, we all knew this was going to happen. And the thing about it is, man, you got to choose health over wealth. You got to choose health over wealth. That's all I've been screaming the last 7-8 weeks is that, look, let's stop playing. That's why I tip my hat to the folks down the street over at Morehouse College, man, because, they had the information. I mean, hell, they got the Morehouse School of Medicine. They had the information. And so they were like, yeah, and it's affecting black people. Like, yeah, we gonna go ahead and shut it down and watch everybody else shut it down too. And so, I'm just saying, like you can't deny the Morehouse School of Medicine. You can't deny that.
It's like Howard with their president that is a MD
position,
and they were one of the first ones to shut it down. And then he came back and said, by the way, don't worry about this fall. We tried, but I just got this last report, and y'all can get mad if you want to, but y'all don't want none of this in your life.
Yeah.
With that, Mike, what are your thoughts? And then I'll come back to you, Rob.
Okay.
Yeah, same thing. No surprise. I mean, you mentioned earlier, kudos to the Ivy League. They probably say, hey, dude, we're not really with this. Let's go ahead and just bring things to a conclusion. But I guess the one part I want to highlight is, man, what is that sound? So
motorcycle.
Look at the HBCUs that were out in the forefront and shut this thing down, and how much leadership they showed. I just want to put that on the table. Yep. And here now you have the Big Ten, the Pac-12 finally coming to the point and saying, okay, we're going to listen to general counsel, we're going to listen to reason. But man, they a month behind the SWAC, the MEAC, Houston Tillerson, Morehouse. You look at all these institutions that made these steps way earlier in the process. So you got to understand. What was your thought process? What were you thinking then that you're not thinking now? That's kind of my. But I
want to let Charles jump in here, but I want to share this tidbits before we get his thoughts on this whole framework. The deal was sealed when the Pioneer Big Sky Missouri Valley Conference over the week announced they were postponing football this fall on Friday. That placed the threshold of teams planning to participate in football this fall below 50% at the FCS level. Last week, the NCAA mandated that if more than 50% of teams cancel their season, there would be no championships. We heard about the cancellation of D2, D3, and now we see things moving forward at the Power 5 level, as I call it, the Autonomy 5. What are your thoughts on all this, Charles?
Well, first and foremost, shout out to all the social media infectious disease experts who pretty much were, knew that we could somehow play during the fall. But I think, Dr. Bill, we've been asking since we've kind of gone into this period in time in terms of how can it happen? And I think you touched on it. These presidents, they have not been swayed by the college coaches, the players, and everybody coming out hollering, how we can play, and how coaches are, all of a sudden more infectious disease experts than real infectious disease experts. So, kudos to these presidents and the commissioners for making a very tough, and it's not conceptually a tough decision to make, but just the outside pressure to continue to go about business as normal, to the detriment of many African American athletes. So, congratulations to those commissioners and presidents who held firm today.
So, Rob, with that, what else do you have on your mind, Rob, in terms of what's going on latest in the news that we can opine about your thoughts on right now?
That well, no, I'm playing. No. So look, here's the thing, man. You know, the fall sports being canceled. Like I said, we knew this was going to happen. Now, you know, I got to go ahead and do it. I was on Twitter yesterday. I actually had a conversation with somebody that's really, really embedded with one of the Power 5 conferences, right? And he told me yesterday, like, dude, I don't know why they waiting, because they already said that it ain't happening. I don't know why they wait. I don't know why they keep waiting, because it's a done deal already. They just holding out for some reason. So, you know, here's my thing, man. Like, let it go. And the whole thing of spring sports, like moving the football to the spring, you know, for people that want it, it sounds really good. You know, me, all I want is the classics. I don't care about nothing else. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we could just get some classics in the spring, I'd be satisfied. My soul will be satisfied, right? But at the end of the day, and Dr. Kabir, I'm not sure if Mike and Charles saw this in our little association group, but, you know, I texted everybody today and like, look, the juniors and seniors that are draft prospects, right? The juniors and seniors. By the time you roll around to January, February, what are they doing? They getting ready for the combine and for the draft. They're training, right? So if I'm a junior or a senior, why would I want to play spring football and I'm getting ready to go get a check? You see what I'm saying? So it's like that whole moving to the spring thing, it sounds good. It keeps people's attention, keep people's look, you know, they German Shepherd ears up and whatnot, keep everybody at attention. But you gotta kind of dig deeper and look at the things that go on, like Trevor Lawrence at Clemson. Like, I know this dude's family because my family's from Cartersville, same place where he's from, right? So I know his family. I don't know him. But when I saw him talking about, oh, we want to play, I'm like, dude, you gonna be the #1 draft pick, man. Shut up. Like, there's no way, you know, that you're ever playing in Clemson again. Like, once the ACC shut this thing down, he's not gonna be playing in the spring because he has other obligations to his future as a professional. And so, you know, that's probably my biggest thing, man, is all these kids talking about we want to play, but the ones that are talking about we want to play, those are the ones that really and truly, like, you can pack it up right now and just train and be good. Don't worry about no injuries, none of that stuff.
As you said, it'll be interesting to see how much of them want to play next spring.
Yeah, they're not gonna play.
Different scenario.
And who's gonna go see Clemson play and Sunshine not up under center? I mean, people are gonna see it. It's not gonna be the same.
Sunshine.
Just like in any of these universities, right? If your studs are getting ready for the combine, they're not playing, and nobody's gonna want to come see the second and third string players play. Like, they might, but for real, nobody wants to see that. Like, I do.
I like that. I saw that he snuck that in there. That was pretty good. I want to switch direction a little bit. Go ahead.
Dr. Cabell, I got to step. My youngest is getting interviewed. I know Bria is still on the line. She wanted to ask you guys a couple of questions when you finish. I don't know if she's still on the line, but my youngest is getting interviewed for another scholarship, so I got to jump off the line.
All right, no problem. Let me let Bria jump on before you jump off. Let me see if we can get her to ask these questions if she still's on the line and want to ask a question or two. Bria,
I am on the line.
Go ahead. It's good. We have Bria. She wanted to call in and get some questions. She's been watching us from behind the scenes, so go ahead with your question.
Yes, I have just a couple questions for you because I'm also watching Bryce as well. So I'm probably going to reach out to you guys maybe via email and ask you a couple more questions individually, if that's okay. But after listening to you guys, I'm curious what you think it is listeners look forward most to when they hear you guys. Like, what makes them tune in?
I'm going to ask folks that while they're on here to chime into that so we can get you that information as well, and then I'll give you my thoughts. But this is for one that I want to see what the people say out there. Why do y'all tune in for this show weekly? But what I've heard over the years is people like the fact that we really do a great job of, one, entertaining them, but the type of facts that we bring them is different than what they can get anybody else. So the knowledge of HBCUs and the perspective we bring to the table is unique for this show. Then it's unique amongst us three. I'll let Charles chime in to give us his thoughts as well.
Yeah, I think from the standpoint of we take it very seriously in terms of the history, all the components. I think Dr. Cavill talks about the HBCU diaspora, all the components that make up HBCU athletics, and we take it seriously. We're very passionate about it, and I think that passion comes through with each and every episode, every week, in terms of we love talking HBCU athletics.
Mike, what are your thoughts?
I was going to let Rob go. And Rob, you don't know, this is my daughter. She's about to start grad school in mass communications and probably veering off maybe in broadcast journalism. So she wanted to observe the show. So I'll let Rob Calloway jump in as well. He's coming from Atlanta, Bria.
Well, I know why people tune in to my show, Bria. I'm gonna just be very honest. I'm gonna be very honest. See, this is what I do. I listen to these three dudes right here, right? I listen to these three dudes, and they give you the educated point of view. You know what I'm saying? They give it to you. Like you can't be a layman. Like you gotta have a certain IQ to be able to listen to Dr. Cavill, Mike, and Charles, right? But to listen to my show, you can have the lowest IQ possible, because what I do is I take everything that they say and I just dumb it down and do it for my people, you know. But the one thing that is what Charles said is that we, like everybody that you see on this screen, and everybody's voices that you hear, including your father, we're all passionate, right? We're passionate about preserving the legacy of HBCUs, but not just preserving the legacies, but what can we do to move them forward, right? And so as long as we stay focused on that right there, people go tune in. You know, as long as you can just stay focused, no matter whether you give it to them like I do, just, you know, I just dumb it down. I just dumb it down because none of my listeners know what dysphoria is. So I have to dumb it down. And
Rob does bring it like nobody else. He's crazy. Mike, did you want a piece of that?
No, I think the key word is passion, and folks see passion. But I think we bring kind of the humor to it as well. I think that it's a nice mix. And we combine the facts with having a good time, because when Rob comes on or with Charles and they hear me talk about Dr. Bill, unless he tries to silence my mic, and then he know he gonna get it. But I think they see it. It's not false. It's not pretend. It's real passion. People see it. So I won't add any more to that.
All right, with that, we're gonna come to a close. Mike, I know you need to jettison, so we're gonna let that go. One thing I wanted to put out there, and we can talk a little bit about this more next week, but I really like the idea that North Carolina Central NCCU launches fundraising initiative to raise $1 million. So we can get into the particular of that. Hashtag NCCU Stronger Together. I thought that was brilliant. I've been working with that with a couple of people at Prairie View, Texas Southern University, asking them to consider that, so we'll get a chance to see if that's going on. With that, this is Dr. Kenyatta Cavill. We're about to tune off. I'll give Rob the last segment to give us any indication of what
the benediction. The benediction. Oh yes. The doors of the church are officially open. Boy, this church thing on welcome hinges, as the old folks say. Well, you know, actually, I wanted to extend the invitation, because Dr. Cavill, you always come on the show, man. But I wanted to extend the invitation this week for Charles and Mike to join me this week, and then next week, whoever don't join me this week can join me next week. And then we can just keep the conversation going. No, seriously, you know, because like I said, I like y'all dudes, and you know, Dr. Cavill, he just he love the spotlight, man. You know, he love the spotlight. But you know, I gotta shine the light on y'all boys too, you know, because I do appreciate what y'all bring to the table. So I'm gonna let y'all flip a coin and decide who go join me on this week's show.
I like this.
Y'all my boys, man. You know, I might have scaled the show back just for Saturdays, but I mean Tuesday, I'm here with y'all, man. You know, this is what we do. So
already all day.
Oh yeah, so you know, I guess the only thing that I just like to say in closing is that you know, HBCUs, man, no matter what they say about HBCUs, no matter D-Wade can say we in the dirt, folks can say anything they want to say about HBCUs. But when it comes to this COVID-19 thing, who was on the front end? Who was on the front end? Yes. HBCUs. Why? Because we love our people. That's why all these athletes need to go to HBCUs, because we showed up front that we put health over wealth, and we know that this COVID-19 thing affects Black people, and we were looking out for our people. So now it's time for y'all to come on home. So that's
come on home.
And I think they're doing a good job. They're doing a good job with coming home too. So
amen.
Amen. Great benediction. And if we were in the court, I'd be like, rest my case.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I'm Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, the Dean of HBCU College of HBCU Sports, with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop, and our special guest, Rob Calloway. As we come to a close, I hope you enjoyed our interview with Dr. Crystal McGregor, talking about HBCU sports consumption. Just shout out for a couple of folks, Chuck Hunt, Willie Alex Hines, Jelani Shaw jumping in here and staying with us, Charles Spinks, Andrew Roberts, Reggie Howe, CIAA representing up in here real nice, getting it done. Michael D. Jones giving us much love as they get it done. Jeffrey Rublin representing FAMU, Jalen Riley, Leon Gilmore stayed in here checking us out. Lawrence D. White, PVAM, you getting it done. Donald Walton, Lawrence D. White again, showing us much love. So I just want to give a shout out for those that got around. Great comments going. Check out, continue to follow us. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop every Tuesday from 6 to 7. As we get it done, we do a little extended remix this weekly now. We will look forward to next week as we will discuss the latest news in the lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's DrKenyattaCavil. Again, that's DrKenyattaCavil. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Again, check us out on BCSN. Download the app. We'll have Roy on here in the next couple of weeks to tell you a little bit behind the scenes of why he's building this masterpiece. You can also tune in to Brian and AD as they get it done on their HBCU sports show, Sports Rap, doing a lot of work there. Again, dream big, continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Course
lecture dismissed.
Follow Rob Calloway as well. HBCU Report. You can get that on Saturday.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love my HBCU. And